welcome to my channel. As you can see, I'm back in the kitchen because I've been kind of moved out. My husband is at home and the living room's a mess anyway because I have been switching out the winter to summer clothing. And so everything is like a mess here. So I'm on day number 5 of the Going Deeper. And today's meditation is very special to me on a personal level. So I hope that you will bear with me while I go through it. But for the moment, I need to pull today's card. So let me get the box open here. Open. There we go. And the Four of Swords just popped over here, but I don't think that means anything because it really isn't relevant to today's meditation. It just fell out of the box. So I'm gonna give these guys a good shuffle. I'm using the Gilded Tarot again. I love these cards. They're by Ciro Marchetti. They're very, very beautiful. The cards are really amazing. The artwork is just fabulous. As I said in previous videos, I love these cards and I am just so drawn to them. And it was really kind of wild how I found them because I was at this huge bookstore in London. It's called Foyles and it's huge. It's on 5 floors or something. It's really big. And they have music, they have all these different areas where you can go and you can buy books and stuff. And so I go up to the counter and I ask the lady, I said, "Do you have tarot cards?" And she says, "Oh, they're right there." And she just kind of does that, with her hand. And there's just this little rack and it's got maybe about 4 or 5 rows with about, I don't know, 2 or 3 boxes of cards per row or so. So there wasn't a lot to choose from. It was a very, very small number of cards or decks that you could choose from. And I looked at some of them and I was like, yeah, that looks nice. Oh, that looks okay, And I didn't feel drawn to any of them. And then I saw this Easy Tarot and I was thinking, oh, I have Easy Tarot decks in books and everything. And I don't even use them. I don't even look at in the books because it's it's a little bit overwhelming, I guess. But I was doing that and I was just oh wow, this is okay. And then I found this and I saw the orange and I thought of the book because everything's in orange. It's this orange color. And I felt drawn to it and I was just I picked it up and I was oh, Ciro Marchetti, and that's the person who does the cards from the Lermanon decks that Denise Knight Divination uses. And I thought, oh, those are so cool. I love those cards. But I didn't see them on the list, but I did see these and I thought, okay. And I picked up the box and it just something resonated and I just took them. So I bought them and brought them home and now I'm using them. So they're really cool. So let me give these another quick shuffle and then I'll see if my guides are going to tell me when to stop. Because they usually do tell me when to stop. Nigel just said stop. Just use this. Okay, so there's a card on the top of the deck. And the card that I got today is the King of Pentacles. And another royal card. The one thing that really struck me when I first looked at this card was the green jacket that the king is wearing. To me, green symbolizes prosperity. It's also my very favorite color, but it does symbolize that sort of prosperity. And the king has, he's got the big, large pentacle behind him, which basically implies that this guy's got some cash on hand, if you will. And he seems to be doing quite well. Let me look a little bit closer at his expression seems to be, he's looking off in the distance, not concerned or worried, but just he's looking off in the distance oh, this is coming up in the future. And, he kind of has that sort of I don't want to say nonchalant, but he has that sort of look on his face oh, this is okay. This is, this is life. This is where I'm at. This is my place in the world. And, I'm okay and you're okay and everything's fine. So that's sort of the gist that I get from this. The other thing that kind of is kind of interesting is the width of the throne where he's seated. He's very comfortable. He doesn't seem to be really all that concerned about spatial proximities or what have you. He just seems to be just kind of chilled, kind of relaxed, very happy. Everything's fine. But he is looking off into the future I don't know if it's anticipation or contemplation. So it looks like he's a little bit complicative. It's like he's contemplating something. So that's the card for the day. I don't know how it really matches in with the meditation, but that is the card that I pulled. So I'll put this to the side, and we'll start with day number 5. And I wrote, and I have to say something before I start here. I got interrupted 2 times during this meditation. The first time we had to go to the farmer's market before it started raining, and the second time was to have lunch. So I got interrupted twice, and then I was able to actually get back into the meditation, and it was kind of cool. So that is what happened, and so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Day 5. Today is April 17th, 2025, and here we go. I said, well, all good things must come to an end. The weather is not so great today. Nigel says, in order to see the flowers bloom, you need a little bit of rain. I said, this is true. I just find it funny that after cleaning out the closets and getting the winter clothing packed away, we have cold and wet days. It's the same in the fall when I unpack the winter stuff and then the next day it is hot and sticky. Funny how that works out. And Nigel says, it is Murphy's Law. I said, or the universe having the last laugh. And Nigel says, that too. I said, I have a week and until my test, I hope I pass. Nigel says, you will, you know the stuff. I think so, I said, but I still worry about it. There are about 100 more questions to work through. And Nigel said, even without them, you will do this, but I understand your concerns. I said, then I have to contact someone about translating everything and then get an appointment to sign it. It sometimes feels overwhelming. Nigel said, this too shall pass. You have been in Germany long enough to know the answers. We will not let you fail. Just trust us. You are smart and know this stuff. Sometimes it isn't just about doing enough preparations. It's also about believing in yourself. You are concerned, I know, but you will make it through. I said, yeah, I think so. Every time I look at the book, I see a question or two that I actually don't know the answer to. And Nigel says, you notice that you do remember the answer, even if you don't recall the question. You will do this. Just read back through the questions again before you take the test. You will be surprised that all of the answers will come to you. I said, Nigel, why does this feel so important? And Nigel says, because it is important, not necessarily for your future, but for your state of mind. The one thing you must understand about things is that in order for it to be spiritually centered, you must also be in a place where your mind and heart space are aligned, where your mind and heart space are aligned. When you're worried or troubled about something, you're not fully in alignment. It's like being distracted by outside noise. And it was at this point where I went and turned the radio off because the radio was making static from the ham radio. It was making static, and so I had to get up and go turn it off. Once the noise is dispelled, Nigel continues, you will find yourself better able to contend with the questions of the day. Right now, there's so much turmoil in the world that you feel yourself overwhelmed with outside noise. You are seeing where history and the events of the day are paralleling one another. And you can either use that as a tool for taking the test, or you can allow it to overwhelm you. The choice is up to you, Yvette. We cannot tell you not to be worried or concerned. We can only offer you the tools to contend with the events of the day. Go and do what you must do for today. We can speak more later. And this was when I took my first break. And when I come back, I said, okay, back from the farmer's market. Thank you for being patient with me. And Nigel says, no worries. We can always start up where we left off. You have things to do, places to go, and people to see. I said, not really, nothing much planned for today. The weather is not so great at the moment. Nigel says, Yvette, there's someone here who wants to give you a message. You do recall that each day someone will come in and speak to you. Today it is your father. He's been here. He's been waiting for you to reach out to him. And my dad comes in and he says, hello, Worm. I said, oh God, you still call me that after all this time? Why do you call me that anyway? And my dad says, you were a wiggle worm as a baby. I remember trying to hold you, and you would just squirm about. The nickname came soon after that. I said, well, maybe it was good that you called me Worm. If memory serves, my sister was called Stinker. And my dad laughs heartily about that. And he says, I am not going to disclose that one. I said, that's okay. I said, I imagine not. So, do you have a message for me, Daddy? And he says, first, your grandmother, my mother, sends love to you. And Imodine also sends love to you. That's my father's stepmother. And she was grandma. She was always grandma to me. She can't believe that you still have that doll with the ripped up face. She wonders why you never threw that thing away. I said, she made it. How could I not? How could I just toss it out? I know she made me a second doll, but I was attached to it. You got to admit, my repair work on it was quite interesting, and it did help keep the stuffings from falling out. That doll I actually showed you on a video, so you can go back into my videos when I'm talking about toys and stuffed animals and stuff, and you'll see the doll. My dad says, you're always a very imaginative person. I said, I guess you are quite happy where you are, no chaotic world to contend with. My dad says, perhaps not, but there are lessons to be learned in all of this. The world operates on that level. The knowledge and the lessons will continue up until the day you come to this side of the great veil. I said, that sounds mysterious. My dad says, only because you're a writer. I do want you to know something, though, Yvette. I understand why you left, and I also am glad that you found someone who could give you what I could not. Ferdinand is a good guy, and we are both watching over you and your husband. Okay, Ferdinand was my father-in-law, and I was very close to him before he passed. And I always think about him. We have a picture of him hanging here in the kitchen, so. But very, very good person. He was a lovely, lovely person. And my dad whistles at this point. He says, wow, 30 years. Did you think that could last so long? And that's meaning my marriage, because my husband and I have been married for 30 years. I said, I didn't get married with the intention that it would not last. And my dad said, nor did I. I said, I was never angry with you for leaving. I guess you could say father, like daughter. My dad says, still, my leaving did hurt you and your siblings. You just never thought that it was my fault. It was the alcohol, I said. I just didn't have the excuse. My dad says, you had the truth, Yvette. You left for your own well-being. When you get to the next level, it will not be because of your leaving one country and going to another. It will be because you had a choice to make that would benefit you. As for the test, Nigel put it best. You've got this. I will be watching over you and helping. And I said, but you don't speak German, Dad. And he says, well, here everything transcends the use of human language. I said, I keep forgetting that. But I do feel a bit calmer about the test now. And my dad said, that's my girl. I said, did it help back in 91 when I called you? Before you got sick? And my dad said, it helped a lot. When I transitioned, I could see that you were genuinely sad that I was not physically there, but I have always been with you. I said, I sense it. Thank you, Dad. I really am so happy you came in today. And my dad said, I'm always with you, Worm. I said, I know for certain that that's really you. No one else would call me that. And Nigel says, you see, love, you are not alone. I said, I will remember that. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Nigel. And that's where I took my second break when I had to go and have lunch. And so now we continue. I said, Nigel says, you've always had the power within to bring forth his knowledge. The truth is, he has not left you. He has always been with you, even when you were sad and heartbroken about how things were with the family. I said, people used to say things like I was like my dad, and as a way of sort of punish me. But I always thought that I was more like him than my mother or siblings. Even when I had cancer and posted that picture, my sister comes out and says, you look just like Dad. I didn't take offense to it. Instead, I was like, yeah, I take after my dad's side of the family. It was just it was never a point of contention with me. It's just what it was. And Nigel says, yes, perhaps explains why people reacted to you in certain ways. I said, yeah, but it sure feels very much like the notion that my allies are in my family have all transitioned. And Nigel says, not all. You have two cousins who are very much aligned with you. That gives you no reason to worry. And my dad said, oh, and there is another something I wanted to tell you. That mention about me made me really want you to know that you have how amazing I think you are. Cancer got me, but you fought it off with all the courage and strength there is. I can say that you made me proud. The issue of cancer is one that I know far too well, but it was too strong for me, but not for you. Wow, you truly are someone who knows when it is time to be strong, to hold your own, and to overcome the things that would hold people back. Truly amazing show there. I am proud of you. I said, that means a lot to me. I wish only that you had defeated the cancer. And my dad says, I wasn't meant to. I did not have much respect for my body. You do. You know that this is about the body, mind, and spirit. The way you treated yourself throughout the treatment inspired others to not give up the fight. Never underestimate yourself, Yvette. You have a power inside that cannot be undone unless you choose to undo it. I do not see that happening. And I said, I love you, Daddy. And he says, I love you too. And that will never change. I said, thank you. Nigel says, you have had a very emotional message today, love. So I think now after 2 interruptions, we can now close and you can go about your day. I said, sending love, light, and gratitude to you and to my dad. And Nigel says, sending it back to you. So that was the end of the meditation after 2 interruptions, but it was so lovely. Talking to my dad. My dad passed away in 1991. I was 20 years old at the time. This was before I met my husband and before I moved to Germany. So when he got sick, this was a couple of months after I called to try to reconcile with him, because I just felt that it was important for me to reconcile with him. The other thing is I had had a dream several nights before I called that my father had transitioned. And so acting on that dream alone, I called him, I reached out to him, and we talked. And he had already stopped drinking. He was an alcoholic through much of my life. I was probably for all of the time that I knew him, my father was an alcoholic, active alcoholic. He was drinking actively. So when he stopped drinking, and I had reached out to him and he had stopped drinking, it was like euphoria in real time. I was very, very happy when he stopped drinking, and we were able to reconcile about 7 or 8 years of bad feelings. And after we reconciled, several months later, my grandmother calls me and says, your father's been taken to the hospital. He has a tumor on his lung. And it turned out to be malignant. And he died about 6 months later. So when I reached out to him, that was like the greatest gift that could have ever happened, because I was able to reconcile with him before he got sick, and I was able to reconcile with him before he passed. And after he passed, I was very sad, but I was sad for the right reasons. I was sad because he had passed, not because I felt any sort of guilt about anything that I could or couldn't do or had or hadn't done. It was because I was genuinely sad that he had passed. And so a few years later, I got married, and I told my husband about my dad, showed him a picture and everything like that. And my husband was like very, very accepting of how I felt about it. And my husband's dad sort of became my stand-in dad. You know, he became like a father figure to me. I called him Papa, and we got along very, very well. And Papa passed in 2021. So it was like right on the tail end of COVID, my father-in-law passed. And he had been battling illness for like 10, 15 years. So he right after he retired, he got sick, and for 20 years after that or so, he was, in the last 6 or 7 months or so, he was homebound. He couldn't go anywhere. But we understood each other very, very well. We got along very, very well, and I adored him. I thought he was just amazing. So when my father mentioned Ferdinand, that was my father-in-law, and so they now see each other and talk to each other. So that just is a very, very reassuring feeling for me, and that's a very long, drawn-out explanation of all of that. But I had to include it because I thought it was important. So anyway, so that is the meditation, and now I have to do the card. So here is the card. It's the King of Pentacles. Let me see if I can find the explanation here and see how far or close I am to it. Okay. King of Pentacles. Okay. The king's throne sits solidly on the ground, representative of the earth element. The back of his throne is a large golden pentacle. He appears quite comfortable, at ease with himself and his position. This king is usually financially successful, an excellent businessman, comfortable within himself and his position in life. He has strong character and is dependable and steadfast. If he becomes angry, it is short-lived and he doesn't brood. These men make excellent husbands and fathers, as they are loyal and reliable and see their role as being good provider. Family and tradition are important to them. Isn't that wild? That I would have a contact with my father on a day. Excellent father. Excellent husband. Both of these things I have. And as I talk to my father and I pull this particular card, my mind is completely blown. So, with that said, I hope you have a wonderful day. And I'm completely gobsmacked by that. I thought it was just amazing. And it was a great way to close out this session. So, I wish you a wonderful day. Take care. And as always, namaste.